you both for being here. I really appreciate it.
No
No
worries.
problem.
Awesome. Again, well, our podcast is all about your guys' journey in music and how you guys got to where you are, and of course, forming the Django Django. And we'll talk about the new record, "Glowing in the Dark."
Great.
Cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, we'll start with you, Vincent. How did you, or where were you born and raised?
I was born in Derry in Northern Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I moved to Scotland when I was 18,
Mhm.
to Edinburgh, to the art school there, and studied architecture, and that's when I came across Dave, really. But I'd been writing, like, when I was like a teenager. I was, a bit dyslexic, kind of put more time into kind of writing music in my bedroom rather than doing homework,
Sure.
which was good training in some ways, and was in like little bands, weird little bands and stuff. And yeah, that was the kind of beginning, really.
Wow. Wow. Okay. What about you, David? Where were you born and raised?
Fife in Scotland. So you might know St Andrews from where the royal Prince William and whatever,
Sure.
forget the other one's name, went to uni, and home of golf. So there was always a lot of American
Home of
golfers
golf.
walking around.
Really? Is that where it started?
For golf. Yeah.
Oh, fun. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there'd be a lot of Americans there golfing a lot. And yeah, and Dundee, I guess, is where I spent a lot of my time. Scotland's one of Scotland's main cities. So yeah, and then I also went to Edinburgh, and that's where I met Vinny.
Wow. Wow. Well, Vincent, you said you were always writing songs. Like, what was the first instrument you learned to play?
I tried my hand at piano. I couldn't really read the music. I was kind of memorizing all the notes and trying to go in and kind of polish off. So that didn't last very long. And then yeah, my mum got me like guitar tutor for a few months, and then I kind of went and did my own thing after that. But yeah, it was just, I suppose I didn't really have the concentration span to kind of sit down and figure out covers too much. I suppose I did quite a lot of Beatles. I had the kind of Beatles kind of catalog of all their tracks.
Oh, okay.
I would kind of learn all their unusual chords and stuff. But apart from that, I just was more interested in kind of writing my own little ditties, you might say, like just little kind of strange songs or whatever. But yeah.
That's cool. Did you were you in like a band or anything after you started playing, or?
Yeah, after a while we had a school band. We did a battle of the bands kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
And like, yeah, I was in a band that was playing in pubs when I was like 14 or 15. So they would kind of let us on. They would let us in when we were about to play, and then kick us out when we were finished.
Oh, sure. They let you in play and then just boot you right out the door.
Get you out of there. And everybody else got paid in beer, so we didn't get paid at all.
Oh.
So no, it was good fun, but it was all quite nobody really knowing what the hell was going on. But quite good fun.
Was it like, were you taking it seriously enough to being like, this is going to be my dream, or was it just kind of like a fun hobby?
It was a fun hobby, really. I didn't really think about it more than what I think we were meant to demo some stuff, and we didn't even realize that was potentially a thing, that you demo songs. We would like, why would you do that? You just play live.
Sure.
So yeah, it wasn't really anything I could say was quite accomplished or even recorded. So it'll be kind of forgotten in the mysteries of time.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, David? What was the first instrument you learned how to play?
I played the trumpet at school in jazz bands and stuff. And then when I got my DJ turntables, that was I got them when I was 13, and it was all about DJing really for me.
Like club? Were you
So
club DJing or no? Just kind of learning how to mix.
Learning how to do hip hop, sort of scratching and beat juggling.
Oh, cool.
Learning how to mix techno records. You know, we were into hip hop, techno, any kind of dance music. And then I got a drum kit as a kind of, again, like Vinny, I was doing Battle of the Bands and stuff with bands, doing Stone Roses covers and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And the drum kit for me was more like I started wanting to make hip hop beats. So I got a 4-track and drum kit and was like recording myself drum to do loops, basically. And learning how to do that. And then that's almost, you could sort of say that's the start of Django Django, because a lot of those 4-track tapes I then took to art college and built on that until I came to Chelsea Art School in London and met with Vinny for a pint and was like, well, this is what I've been doing with a 4-track and computer, you know, hip hop beats or whatever. Vinny was like, well, yeah, I've been doing that, but songs. So it was like, yeah, I was no good at songwriting, he was no good at beats, so we came together really.
That's cool. Like kind of the perfect combo there. You had the beats and Vinny had the songs.
I wanted to play the guitar like a drummer. Like I always kind of fancied myself as a drummer, like, but I never obviously I could never do it. So it kind of suited our style. My brain was in a kind of, I was into that kind of percussion, like that percussion kind of idea.
So did you said you met it for a pint and then kind of decided there to start jamming together and start forming something?
Yeah, I think we said let's do one song, and that song was Storm, the very first track we released. I think by that stage I was very much like, whatever we do next. I'd been in a couple of bands at college and stuff, and it was so hard to get everyone together to actually do a demo or whatever, because everybody was either in the pub or hungover or, you know, something. So I was very much like, look, whatever this song is that we do next is getting cut to 7-inch somehow, or you know, that is it now. You know, I'm not kind of mucking about with demos too much or anything, because I guess by then I was confident we could record things well enough to put it out. And that was just the ethos of the whole first album. That Storm just turned into another track and another track, and before we knew it, we had an album really.
And I mean, that first record, I mean, all your albums are awesome and they all done very, very well, but that first record really kind of took off for you all, right? I mean, you had some major songs, like Waveforms, which was on, different soundtracks, and you had Default, which is massive streaming numbers. I mean, I'm looking at that song on Spotify, it has like 27 million plays. Like that number is like hard to wrap my head around. I'm sure it is for you guys as well.
Yeah, I think especially for a track that was made in a bedroom, with a completely rubbish 1990s PC computer, with the guitar plugged into the back of the sound card with a little 1/4-inch jack, and we just didn't. I say that we were confident to make a record, but it was the kind of confidence of youth. It was just like we didn't have a clue what we were doing. We just thought let's do it anyway, kind of thing.
Sure.
So I think those streaming numbers are funny because I remember Vinny sitting on the end of my bed in this sort of squat type flat,
playing some awful cheapest pawn shop guitar.
Yeah,
like 25 quid guitar.
Oh my gosh.
And I think we did
and then,
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like you'd come round and play the riff and then disappear for 2 weeks, and I'd chop it up and make it into a song. We never actually thought much about bridges or choruses or structures, or it was a mucker. It was messing around and having fun with it, I guess.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't realize. So was that whole first record done in your room like that?
Yeah.
Wow. So
we had to tidy up by like 5 or 5:30 because Dave's ex was coming back, and because she'd crack up if the place was like dirty, so we'd have to get it all kind of clean up all the crap and pull the drum kits and put it all away and look like we'd never really been there. That was slightly later, but yeah, the first part was quite Dave's own bedroom was quite it was quite sporadic what was happening.
That's funny. Was it just the two of you on that first album, or did you?
No, I think towards about halfway through making the album, we started to bring in Tommy, and then about 3/4 of the way through, we brought in Jim. So it was predominantly me and Vinny, and then we started to bring in Tommy and Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of making it, for like the last couple of tracks, Silver Rays, a couple of the later ones, it was like we were a proper 4-piece band by then.
Mm-hmm. Were you playing live at all, or was it just like a project that you decided to kind of put out and see what it did?
We were playing live, yeah. We'd got some offers, I think, after putting out, like, we had 2 or 3 tracks, and then we got a gig offer, and we were like, shit, what are we going to do? We can't go and play 3 songs, so we're going to have to do another 2 songs quite quick.
Mm-hmm.
And that only makes 25 minutes.
Right.
Which is not, it's ridiculously short. So we just had to kind of keep adding tracks in whilst taking on. I think we kind of realized we hadn't, none of us were really like proficient at our, like I was not a very good guitar player, not a very confident kind of frontman, you might say. And, the drum, everything was all a bit like shoddy, you might say. So you bring it all together, it was a bit of a mess. So we kind of knew we had to play quite a lot live to get up to scratch and kind of get a bit of confidence and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And when did you start seeing like the progression with the album? Was that starting to take off first, or were you playing more live shows and gaining fans that way? Do you know like a moment when that record kind of started taking off for you?
I think the reviews that first week, I mean, the live shows kind of started getting better like about a year before the record came out, 2011. I remember there being a noticeable better reaction to like how we were playing it. I think we'd got much tighter. Mm-hmm. And then when we did play in a little warehouse or a club night, maybe a lot of people didn't know who we were, but they would always kind of get into it by the end, even though they were maybe just didn't know who you were. And then when the record came out, I think we got that first week we got like quite good reviews, a few 5s from like a 5 from the Guardian.
Wow. So they got a hold of it and everything and reviewed it. That's probably, I mean, just to get them to listen and review it must have been a pretty big moment for you.
Yeah. I was ready to I had no idea what was going to happen. I was almost thinking, right, what am I going to do? And in February or March, if this doesn't really happen, I'll have to go and get a job somewhere. But luckily, it began, we got quite good reaction out of people. And I think it caught everybody off guard, even the label and stuff. They were all like, wow, this, nobody really quite expected it. So it was quite nice. It was a quite nice way to do it. It was quite natural growth, if you might say. There was no real massive push behind it before it actually went out there.
Wow. What you said, like you guys had already had a label and everything when you put the record out.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
did that
they
come
I
about?
think we did the first single ourselves,
Mhm.
and then our plan was to kind of just keep doing that and just do the album ourselves. And then because music that we're signed to came to us and said, do you want to do it? So I need to start my car because my battery will die. Do you want to sign to us, basically? And I was just a bit scared of record labels, especially, because music are an independent, but I was scared of major labels.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have some huge acts on them too. I mean, Moby was on that record label, and Major Lazer put stuff out on that label. I mean, it's
yeah. They're a big indie, But yeah, when they spoke to us about signing to them, they were like, "Look, just go away and do your thing, and we'll put the record out." There was no like trying to put us in with a producer or trying to make us start again, or so many labels just become an A&R person can become a real megalomaniac and just make people go in with expensive producers or start from scratch or ditch songs, or there was none of that. It was just like, look, you give us the album, we put it out. And that's the way it's been ever since, really, with them.
That's amazing, especially since you guys did the first record and the first song so DIY. I mean, he's talking about doing it on an old computer and like with a 4-track, and it was just kind of like something that you guys were just kind of putting together. And then for them to go, we're not going to make you go in and polish this at all. It's just we're going to put it out. And maybe that's the reason why people were so attracted to it.
I think so. I think that timing of it being DIY when everything was a bit indie music at the time was all really like polished production, and this was much more raw sounding, I think, and a bit weird, and yeah, it just kind of struck a chord at that moment. I think it was just quite good timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then with the success of the first record, I mean, were you getting radio play, or how did it start building?
I think the UK, there's a station here called Six Music, and they got really behind it. I don't think we were on any commercial big commercial radio stations. It was all small, independent, or alternative people that supported it.
On college radio and stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and in America, college radio, as you say, Default became a weird hit out of, maybe that was on an advert or something, that song. And yeah, just I think Default was the kind of key track there that especially in America did really well for us, and yeah, just everything just kind of snowballed from that moment, really.
Yeah. Well, when that record started doing things, were you playing more shows? Were you playing outside of the little area that you were playing before? How did your live reach go?
I think
from there?
The album came out in end of January, start of February, and then we got a Mercury nomination. I think it might have been April or May when we were in the States. And you just noticed a kind of noticeable, because I was always surprised that like in the States that people were aware of the Mercury, that it actually, like, I don't know how far it is, how important it is, but we certainly got a lot more press, and that was always a question. How do you feel about receiving a Mercury nomination? And yeah, it definitely did step things up a bit more. Yeah, it was a kind of nice momentum. But yeah, the shows got steadily bigger. till we were playing places that in London that I would have seen, you know, bands that I would have really loved back in the day, who were big. Well, who to my eyes, and you know, were big. So by the end of that year, it was quite. You didn't really see it, like it wasn't like one day it was, you know, it was quiet or medium sized and then it was massive. It was just this really slow,
like
build,
organic
if you know what I mean.
build. Yeah. Wow, that must have been a pretty big moment for you if you got to play these venues that you would go to see music as a fan.
Yeah, we played Shepherd's Bush Empire, and I've just seen so many acts I've loved in there over the years. It's quite weird, quite surreal.
That's amazing. And then so after that record, the next record you put out was called Born Under Saturn, and that was a few years later. What would you say, like, with that record, what was like the milestone moment or like the big takeaway from that album, would you say?
Well, for that one, I think we'd been on the roads. You know, the demand for us to tour just kept growing. So we toured for like 2 years or more, 2 or 3 years non-stop.
On that first album?
Yeah. It just kept growing, and we kept getting asked to do festivals, and so we were a bit kind of roads weary and a bit knackered, and then we decided to go into this massive residential studio, which was like the opposite of a bedroom. One of the guys from Jamiroquai had set up, and
wow.
Yeah, we went up and lived there for a little while, and just we didn't have any songs written, or we did it completely back to front, where we treated it a bit like a holiday camp where we just played table tennis and drunk loads of wine, and then got the bill at the end for like 100 grand, and we hadn't done anything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we had to come home and make the album at home again.
Really? Was it done
much.
in another one in your bedroom?
Well, we had a little studio set up, and I mean, I don't think that you know, I've got issues with the second album, and it was just a bit unfocused. We should have just had a break. But I think the main takeaway I got from the second album was not so much the music we made, but honing in on putting the album together at the end of it, and like that kind of jigsaw puzzle you have when you've made all of the music, and then how do you turn that into an album. I was so knackered by the time that we had to track list it, and there was so many arguments about what goes on and what stays off, that it was just a massive compromise. And you know, I that's something that we just sort of thought, right, we're not doing that again. We're going to stick to, you know, I kind of see it as my role a little bit, my responsibility as a producer and as a DJ, really, of just making sure an album flows properly and is the right length and edited down properly. And that's something I've learned, and I think that it's much, you know, you can see that on Marble Skies, and the new one is that we've edited it a lot better. We've sort of constructed it a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about. I love that you spend so much attention and to making sure the record flows as it does, because I mean, we're in such a world of singles now, right? It's like we're gonna put 15 singles out in a row, and then it's gonna make a cohesive album, where there's something about putting a record on and listening to it all the way through, and why you chose the first song to be the first song. I mean, I'm sure there's obviously a reason. It's not like that was the first song we wrote, so that's the #1 song on the record. I mean, there's something to be said about really curating the album.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
I mean, it. You know, when you grow up listening to Dark Side of the Moon or Revolver,
Sure.
You know,
my favorite Beatles album. Thanks for mentioning that one. I feel like that one doesn't get as much credit as it should.
Well, that's my favorite one as well, and it the way it flows and all that's so great. And but it's important to look, we're not teenagers or kids that are listening to tracks or singles all the time. I mean, I like that when it comes to making my own mixtapes and stuff, to pick and choose, but albums, I think, when this obsession with single tracks and Spotify and stuff's over, which it will be eventually, you know, the things that have longevity are the albums that come out on vinyl and that are put together properly. I think the rest will just sort of
like fizzle
melt
out.
into the yeah, because how are they gonna be remembered in the digital chaos that is the internet? Do you know what I mean? Like who's gonna dig that out? Who's gonna dig out a track like that in a charity shop in 30 years? No one.
Yeah, no one.
There's not a digital equivalent of finding an album in a junk shop or an old record shop.
I
so a lot of this
completely
stuff
agree
is
with you.
it's just going to end up in a clogging up a server somewhere,
Right.
wherever they keep
there's
Siberia or where cold enough to.
Yeah, there's something to be said about going into a record store and, you know, digging through the crates and finding it. And, you know, I love that whole, like, the whole, like, ritual of it all. You know what I mean?
Of course. I mean, when did you hear a romantic story about two people meeting over both grabbing the same Kindle? You know, like, romantic stories are people meeting in bookshops, and record shops, not fucking sitting at home on your own on a Kindle or scrolling through Spotify. It's just nonsense.
We both added the same song to our Spotify playlist.
yeah. That romantic meeting, you know. People are obsessed also with having everything at the touch of their fingers, you know. Oh, we must have access to every song ever made at all times. No, why? You know, you'll never appreciate any of it. It'll just become, you know, meaningless.
Sure.
So that's why it's important to us to keep making albums and keep caring about how they're made and put together.
Yeah, I love that. Like I said, I love the attention to detail that you guys spend on that, and why you put the records in order the way you do. And there's something to be said about that, and I appreciate it as a listener. So thank you. And I want to ask you, Vincent, like, what would you say that like with that next record, Marble Skies, what would you say like the highlight moment was from that? Was that a similar situation where you guys wrote it and put it out in, you know, more of a DIY style, or did you go back to the big studio?
I suppose the takeaway, the kind of thing that I learned from it was on the first record, like I had all those kind of tracks sitting around and I had the time and no pressure to kind of just be playing a lot and take stuff into Dave, like on a kind of, when we decided to get together, you know, there was just a lot of time. And on the second one, we didn't write enough when we were touring that first record. So it was like quite, I had to really like kind of learn how to write.
Oh, interesting.
In a way,
like rework the muscle kind of thing.
Yeah, like just do it in a completely different way. So like instead of having it all the time to kind of sit and play stuff in your bedroom for ages, and almost kind of daydream and play, and stuff comes to you, like almost stuff comes to you better than you thought, that you even thought you were capable of. And even I'm still confused about like some of the tracks in that first album, how I created them, because you know some of them seem impossible to kind of recreate in some ways, like but yeah, I had to kind of try to go and relearn how to write again in a different way, like almost music, like create music as you go. So yeah, that I think I struggled a bit with that album. Towards the end of it, I kind of got into it a bit more and kind of started getting my foot in a little bit. but it meant when we came on to Marble Skies that I had a bit of a method of how to write, as when you kind of need to write.
Sure.
So yeah, it was, yeah, that was probably my biggest kind of learning curve. It means that like when we're on album 4, I'm still, you know, it's I suppose I had that worry about it has to be brilliant. You know, it has to, everything I have to do has to be great. And I kind of realized you just have to just write and enjoy it, and some of it can be good and some of it can be bad, but they're just songs, and like you should like don't get too bogged down on like being amazing. Just enjoy the process, and every couple of songs something will happen that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, just becoming less precious about it, but then yeah,
It must be hard to kind of try to, it's almost like with the other two, and the success of the other records, do you feel like there's a pressure to kind of follow it up and put the next best record out?
yeah. I suppose when you've got all those tracks kind of from the first album and you're like, right, we need more of that, you know, that kind of standard, it can be quite daunting, you know. You're like, you know, where do you begin? But I suppose it's just that thing of just play, you know, and record and seeing what you can kind of like mold things into. Yeah, so it was, I think definitely by the end of that second album, I kind of began to understand how I could kind of lay things out for future albums. Yeah, so that was probably my biggest kind of learning curve in a way.
Sure. Well, we'll talk about your new record that's coming out, and but I want to know where you guys were at when like obviously the whole world shut down in March of last year. Like, were you working on the new album at that time? Was it, you know, was that not even around yet? Like, tell me about where you guys were when the pandemic hit.
The album was finished really, and
Oh, wow.
and yeah, so it's been sat around for a while, but we just finished it, and I remember someone saying to me, you know, that this pandemic thing's going to be a big deal, and you know, I kind of just brushed it off as nothing, and then
As most of us did.
yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, like most people I speak to, it's like 50-50. You know, obviously there's nightmare scenarios going on with businesses shutting and people going bankrupt and stuff. But just from a personal point of view, it's like most people I spoke to have never had so much downtime to just like stop, you know, because the world just is such a fast-paced place, especially when you live in a city like London or New York or whatever. People never really just put the brakes on because you can't, or you'll just, it's a bit like being on a treadmill. If you stop, you'll just fall off. And people are forced to just stop, you know. And without going too deeply into it, I mean, there's the world's a bit of a mess. Even, but I mean, before the lockdowns and the pandemics and stuff, it was a mess, and that's reflected in a lot of the themes of the album, and climate change and political failures and the problems with the growing pains of globalization and all the things that we were going through, and they're all there and sort of make even more sense now. You know, I think the next thing is to just for society is like, what have we learned from this? And something that I think that probably we need to learn is, although we're not, but is like stop consuming and using up all the resources. And you know, there's arguments that pandemics are caused by poor treatment of caged animals that are, you know, used for meat, or I think there's consequences, isn't there, to the way we treat the planet, and but unfortunately, it seems like everyone's bored at home, so they're just buying stuff
You're right.
on the internet.
Amazon is like
using,
never had so much money.
oh God, they're loving it.
What's crazy about it is like those are the companies that are thriving, right? Are all the ones that were already destroying the small businessman already, and it's like now we can't, because you can't order a blender or whatever you need from the guy from the small business people. You'll just hit up Amazon.
Well, without getting conspiratorial about it, it's convenient, isn't it? You know,
sure.
that who's being propped up by the government, and the banks, not the guy with the independent shop selling the blender. It's Amazon.
Yep.
So that's grim, you know, and it's a step further towards this kind of monoculture of corporate globalization that we're all seeing anyway. It's kind of put a bit of a fast forward on that, isn't it? Because so many businesses are going to go under, and as we say, you know, those big guys are going to thrive. But hopefully, when things, you know, people need to see that's happening and kick against it a bit, and really support small businesses and small restaurants, and when we come out of this.
Yeah, agree.
And you know, America, although America's the kind of almost invented the blueprint of this way of ultra, you know, capitalism on steroids that we're all seeing. Also, the other side of that, when you tour America, is what you call the sort of mom and pop businesses and how great they are. And I think you guys have managed to actually hold on to that a lot as well, especially with restaurants and stuff. So that's what needs to be kind of supported and thought about, really, when we come out of this.
Yeah, it's sad to see some of these like iconic clubs here in the States too that are just, I'm sure where you guys are as well, where they're just going under because there's nothing happening there. And I know there's a lot of artists and stuff that do like live stream events to kind of like give money in, but it's like this has been going on for almost a year now. Like, how do they continue? And it doesn't look like there's a live, you know, there's not going to be a big festival in the next 6 months, so it's just hopefully
I think the government here almost kind of wishes them away. Like, you get the feeling that, you know, the Tory government don't really want that kind of stuff. It kind of, you know, they just see people, you know, it's like Margaret Thatcher you know, made laws in the 90s trying to ban, you know, mass gatherings and stuff like that. That kind of ethos has kind of continued on. It's almost like if you're enjoying yourself too much, they don't want to see it. You know,
right? They're like, you're having a little too much fun.
They want you to. Yeah, it's like kind of. I think it's the same with the music industry, like, and artists and stuff like that. I think there's an aspect. They don't put any emphasis on arts or music in schools anymore. It's all about maths and English, you know. That's all that really counts, you know, when really, and it carries on into, you know, they'd rather see clubs be turned into flats, you know. And and you can see it in Manhattan, you know, all the kind of laws that have driven out a lot of dance, you know, dance culture and stuff. You're not like legally allowed to dance in a bar or something, you know. There's cases of that. It is. I think there will always be some way that, like, it kind of breaks through. Like, even when you know, there's a lot more kind of illegal rave kind of culture going up here, especially around Tottenham where we are. You know, there's a lot of, you can kind of hear, you know, clubs across the marshes and stuff like that, or nights. Maybe not now in the lockdown, but it always kind of finds a way through. It's probably just getting pushed slightly back underground again or something.
Yeah, I feel that same way. I mean, there's clubs. Sorry, go ahead, David.
No, I was just going to quickly say that the 2020s might be a bit like the 1920s, where you'll just get these underground speakeasies popping up, and the way that it happened back then. But yeah, it'll come back somehow, won't it?
Sure. Yeah, because I was gonna say that I hear you get wind of things like that happening here in the States, like where yeah, it's a lot more that underground, like raves, like popping up some places, and yeah, like exactly what you said. That's spot on with the 20s and just everything kind of having to be underground a bit.
In the 80s in England, like a lot of the city centers were kind of derelict, no man's lands, and basically a lot of that illegal rave culture, when it got kind of shut down, they had to be legit. So they came into the city centers and they kind of regenerated the city centers, and new hotels were opposite the clubs, and the clubs became massive, and everybody was like rinsing it. They were all making money. And then obviously it gets to a point where we don't need the clubs. Everything's so kind of cleansed, you might say, that the club then becomes a problem. The noise and the people gathering, and then they kind of want it out again. So it's kind of done a full circle in a way.
Yeah, once they've made enough money off of it, they don't want to see it there anymore, right?
Yeah,
that's interesting. Well, back to your guys' the record. You said it was complete prior to everything shutting down, so I'm sure that kind of threw a wrench in everything you guys were going to do as far as like a release and a tour, I would assume. But yeah, is it bizarre putting out music now with everything that's going on? I mean,
I think
how long were you going to hold it?
We were meant to release in May, or maybe after the summer we were going to release. Can't remember when it was, but we were like, let's just push it back a bit because it's got a bit mental. And then obviously it's coming out probably
more
at the worst time. Like, I think, yeah, but I suppose it's like it's in some ways people are still at home and kind of need stuff to be entertained. Like there's people churning through new television shows or any movies that got kind of finished before the kind of lockdown, and music being put out. Like, people are still really kind of consuming that, like, and really need it probably more than ever potentially, because there's not really much else there to do. So in some ways there's like upsides to it, but yeah, it is strange not like being able to kind of be in a room with people and play some of the stuff. Like, I think we've got a tour scheduled potentially for September, but it's been knocked back 3 times now. We've like moved it back. I think we were meant to be playing in maybe March.
Oh, wow.
We got that got moved a long time ago, and then it was like, well, what about like maybe towards the beginning of the summer, and now it's September. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, it's totally a different world as far as like putting records out. The traditional sense of album tour. I mean, that's out the window right now.
And I think like, even though stuff could go back, say if everybody gets vaccinated, I think there's an aspect to people are they're not really used to being around groups of people anymore. Like, there's this thing like where you get freaked if anybody comes to. So it'll take time for people, even though things might be safe at some point. I think it's going to be a slow kind of creep to get people into being confident enough to kind of go out and venture out and be comfortable in a big crowd again.
Sure. Yeah. Are you guys doing like the live stream events or anything like that, or to promote the record?
Yeah, we're doing bits and bobs of live streaming stuff and remote. We'll record ourselves individually at home and piece it all together and things like that. Yeah, and that's about all you can do, really. So doing that and just like thinking about what's next, and this album's been around for in our lives a long time now. So it's like, what's next? What do we want to release after it? If if we miss the boat on the touring cycle, how are we going to jump back on it and keep the momentum? So yeah, just thinking about what to do now this year, next year, trying to plan it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys been writing during this process, or is it kind of just been too overwhelming that you're like, we're gonna work on the record? And I know you guys put together an amazing video for Glowing in the Dark. We'll talk about in a second, but what about writing and being creative right now?
Yeah, I mean, me and Vinny will be in the studio every day at some point usually.
Oh, okay.
And even if you just go in for an hour and lay down a drum track, or as long as you're doing something each day, I think that's the important thing, rather than forcing yourselves to be in there 8 hours bashing out a new album.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be a bit overwhelming. And yeah, a lot of finishing stuff that didn't make the last album, getting that all together. Because the one thing for making this new album was we were so kind of brutal in the cutting room that a lot of big tracks got left off just because they didn't fit into the flow of it very easily. So it's like, what do we do with them? Yeah, just sort of taking it week by week, really.
Sure. Well, tell me about this, the music video for Glowing in the Dark. I know that it was, you guys kind of worked remotely on the edit. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think Dave, you kind of suggested it, earlier, did you? Or how did that? I can't remember how that came about.
I think because he'd done an album cover, a 12-inch cover for us before we.
Oh, is that's how you got him? Yeah. What record did he do prior?
In Your Beat, was it?
In Your Beats.
Oh, cool.
In Your Beats, yeah.
So you just contacted him again to work on the music video for the song?
Yeah, because we knew he was in like painting over the top of live film, and that's the only way that we could make an iPhone footage
right.
Look good if somebody just took it and made it into a piece of kind of pop art, you know. Mm-hmm. That's what he does so well. So I don't think, I mean, Vinny filmed himself like in his garden or whatever.
Oh, that was all done by yourself?
Or did your wife film it, Vinny?
No, it was a tripod. Got my brother-in-law right. in initially, but yeah, it was just a tripod. Me, you know, looking like a prick. But yeah, the neighbors must have been like, "What the hell's going on?" But yeah, I just did it against the green screen. He kind of gave me a bit of direction of what, because I didn't really know what I was, was meant to do really. Mm-hmm. And he was just like, just try this and that, and so I had and then I kind of fed over the footage, and he was like, "Oh, I need it slightly like that," or we kind of tweak it as we went. It was all quite loose kind of direction. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then he kind of did his thing and kind of brought it to life, which was it kind of fit. I think it fits in well with the actual music itself. Like it ties in quite well.
Yeah.
They bind. So I always think that's a good sign of a music video, just that it really adds something and almost raises the track up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because like you said, it brings like a new life to it. Like with this whole pandemic and people like, wanting to grab new things, like you talked about shows and binging stuff and everything else right now. I feel like the visual aspect of having the video to watch is just adds so much more.
Yeah.
And with the video, how did you guys work back and forth? Because he's in New York, correct?
I think he's in New York. Yeah, he's in New York. He's Portuguese, but he's living in New York. And we transfer him over these videos, and he just chopped it all up.
You just gave it to him, let him do his thing.
Yeah, some of it, like big sections of it, are just one take, which I didn't think he was gonna. I thought he was gonna chop it up more, but he was kind of happy with like long takes, like
Okay.
from some of the stuff I'd done, um, which was quite unusual. But I think a lot of the, I think I did a Zoom call, which got quite late one night. You know, sometimes when you get on with friends, it can go to like 2 a.m,
Right.
and then you're totally hammered. And then I think I got a message the next in the middle of the night, because it's American time. I need another take tomorrow morning. Get it to me, get it to me for like 11:30, or like and I can get it in. So I woke up the next day totally hungover, and it was 35 degrees at the back.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
I was just sweating like I was dying, and I think that might have been a lot of the footage that was actually captured on there in the end.
Oh, the second take?
Yeah.
Did you do the same like choreographed piece, or was
No,
it so out of
every time I don't think I could have choreographed anything. It was just whatever came in
what?
that on the moment, whatever came into my mind. You know, so it was just, yeah, it was just a bit of a, oh, I might do this now, or I might move that way. So yeah, look, like that hungover take kind of made its way in there, I think.
That's amazing. With the new album, what are you guys most proud of?
Um,
Uh, uh, I think for me, just I think the overall package of it's good, you know, and it's something that we strive to do, is have this overall package of something that's got the right textures and the right. It's a bit like making someone dinner, you know. You don't want it all to be one texture, or
Mm-hmm.
so then you try again if something isn't working, and that's what I like about this album, is just the kind of overall balance of it. I think is good, and there's some nice little moments for me, like the arc, which is like a little instrumental ditty,
Mm-hmm.
things like that are yeah, that are fun to do. And then songs like Asking for More that Vinny wrote, I think strong. Yeah, it's probably the most realized album we've done. Whether it'll be the best received or people like it best, I don't know, but to me it's the most closest to what we sort of set out to achieve.
It's amazing. What about you, Vincent? What would you say that you're most excited about with the record?
I think the storytelling's got like the kind of themes of the tracks have kind of condensed more. You know, like in the past, sometimes we would have written songs that potentially would have been quite loose in what they were talking about, or maybe we wouldn't have fully known what we were talking about. But I think we kind of forced ourselves to basically write, when we're writing a song, it has to be about something, or otherwise it shouldn't exist. And you know, we would sometimes catch each other out and go, what's the track about? And if people started hesitating, or we're like, well, it's kind of about, but it's, you know, it's kind of, you just have to say what it's about in a sentence, because if you don't understand what it's about, how the hell will anybody else?
Yeah.
So I think every track has got, I kind of know what it's about, which I think, you know, hopefully comes across, and I think gives it a bit of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, just the diversity, like thing, yeah, say little moments like, I think it might be the Buffalo, and there's like a little instrumental orchestral strings part, you know, about by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of friends, well, a lot of my family will like the kind of doorbell moment in Kicking Out the Devil, which always had the voice, and that always reminds me of Martin Short for some reason. I can almost see him saying that. Um, yeah, there's like little kind of touches to it, which kind of give you a little bit of like prick up your interest at times and kind of pull you out of your what you think is track. You know, it's the little moments in between sometimes that make it quite nice.
That's amazing. And then I love that, and I love that I love that you guys were able to get Hot Chip to do a remix of the title track as well. Are you buddies with them? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, we toured with them before, so and they all live around the same area of London, and one of them has an art studio upstairs from us. So
Oh wow.
yeah, they've been, you know, we've known them for quite a while, as well as just being massive fans of theirs. So it was quite easy to approach them for it. Yeah, and just chuffed that they wanted to do it and they had time to do it, and gave us a discount on the price.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and chatting today. I really, really appreciate it. I have one more question. Of course. I have one more question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Mine would be to, I think everyone does this now anyway, but just do it yourself. Don't wait for other people. Just make it yourself. Do it yourself. Always.
I love that. What about you, Vinny?
Let's probably go back to that thing of like, don't get too precious about it. Like, just, it's, you know, if a song is great or not great, it's still music, and you know, someday, you know, you'll hopefully have a wee kind of eureka moment. Just don't get too bogged down in the pushing yourself to everything be amazing. You know, just enjoy the kind of moments where it's crap as well.